We are recapping last night's thrill ride and looking ahead to 8 NFC home games, not including the Monday night game. We did that one on yesterday's show. Welcome, everybody, to the Fantasy Football Today Road Tour presented by Little Caesars. Pizza for dinner tonight? How about ordering your favorite online from Little Caesars and using Pizza Portal Pickup? It's the latest, greatest, and hottest way to pick up a pizza without even going to the register. And yeah, that sounds damn good. There might be some pizza in my future. We are going to tell you why it should be a good week for Juju Smith-Schuster. I'm going to make a case for Tyrell Williams, kind of a lukewarm case for Williams at Minnesota. Are we starting all of our bucks? We have a FanDuel contest for everybody to join now. That's awesome. And we have some players to stash this week. And speaking of stashes, guys, Gardner Minshew. What a segue.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah.
He's fun. I would almost say that the Jaguars should not play Nick Foles.
Well, there's
it's over for Nick Foles already.
He's better.
He's definitely better than Marcus Mariota.
Ryan Tannehill's better than Marcus Mariota.
Might be.
Is there a current Dolphins quarterback better than Marcus Mariota?
Might be.
Are there two Dolphins quarterbacks better than Marcus Mariota?
Not yet.
To be fair,
we'll
to Mariota. Yeah, sorry. There were some opportunities there that his receivers did not help him with, but that was it was an ugly game. Jacksonville 20, Tennessee 7, and some fun stats today. Some big news updates. We could be starting Jordan Wilkins this week. Maybe Nyheim Hines, but I'll ask you guys. Jordan Wilkins over Nyheim Hines?
Yes.
Yeah.
Marlon Mack is questionable. I asked for some Gardner Minshew team names from our listeners, so here we go. Well, I came up with Gardner Minstash. TM. It's pretty good. Gardner Minstash. Okay, other ones. Fu Minshew.
That's
Minshew
good.
Pork.
Mm-hmm.
Gardner Mustache. Big League Shoe. The Constant Gardner Minshew. Olive Gardner. Disco Shoe. Shoots and Ladders. Taming of the Minshew. Chewbacca. Minshuster McGavin. Or Minshooter McGavin. There we go. Minshew Piku. 2.5 Minshew.
Shouldn't it be Minshewbacca?
Minshewbacca. Is it Pichu? Manchu Pichu or Piku? Pichu, I think.
Pichu.
Old lady who lived in a shoe. Nice to Minshew. An officer and a gentleman shoe. Cuckoo shoe. And Gardner go by.
That's great. There's the winner.
Yeah, Gardner go by is terrific.
I think you've got a new team name, Jamie.
Yeah.
Yeah, please. You got to all of them. Jacksonville 20, Tennessee 17. Go.
DJ Chark. Look, he's their best receiver now. Dede Westbrook, like you said, he dropped the easy touchdown. And, it's nice to see the targets there for him again, but it's pretty clear that Minshew is not going to settle for check down passes like Nick Foles would have or Blake Bortles did. He's going to take some shots. And he's pretty good at throwing the ball. So, I think if you're in this quarterback quandary as we're entering the bye weeks, you're going to look at him next week. It's a tough matchup going into Denver, so we'll see how he performs there. But at this point, it's now 2 of 3 games where he's appeared in that he's got at least 20 or more fantasy points. And he was pretty good in that game against Houston as well, fantasy-wise. Wasn't awful, at least. So I think he's got the opportunity here to be a potential streamer for you, for sure.
Yeah, he had 17 fantasy points at Houston. He did some running in that game. 6 for 56. He can move a little bit at Denver next week. So Chark 60% owned. Westbrook, you could still be encouraged because he had 9 targets. He had 3 drops. He dropped a touchdown.
Yeah.
So that was good stuff.
But he's clearly behind Chark at this point, fantasy-wise.
Well, I agree, but I think some naysayers could say, well, he had 4 more targets, and if he caught the touchdown, maybe we wouldn't be
right.
saying that.
And I think people are going to see that stat line without watching the game, and they'll say, oh, I can drop this guy now.
Oh, he will be dropped.
You don't have to.
No, I'm not saying you should, but he will be dropped. Because
you could. I don't know if you should.
This is now,
if that makes sense.
This is now saved by a touchdown week 1 and 2 poor performances fantasy-wise weeks 2 and 3.
Still very involved in the offense. Still will have a role. Still will have some good weeks. So, yeah, not going to give up unless there's somebody better off the waiver wire, and then you make the move.
Which running back would you rather have rest of season, Leonard Fournette or Derrick Henry? Both of whom were saved by a 6-point play, a touchdown for Henry and a 69-yard run for Fournette.
But there's there's a different stat that separates these two. It's the catches. I mean, Fournette had 6 for 26. The only thing that Fournette has not done so far this season is score touchdowns. So he hasn't been off to a great start. It was, like you said, he was saved by a 69-yard touchdown, a 69-yard run, excuse me.
Right.
But they're clearly giving him every opportunity to touch the ball. And so I think that's the thing you take away from this, that there will be some big games coming. There will be some touchdowns coming. And I perfectly fine with Fournette. And if anybody's selling, I'm buying.
I'll take Henry because they've been giving him the same amount of opportunities, just not through the air. And he's been doing better with them than Fournette has. And it's not to say that Fournette's been bad. You're asking me which one I'd rather have rest of the season. I'll take Henry. His offensive line is already okay. It's going to get better when Taylor Lewan gets back. They're going to have to do something at quarterback because they can't just keep going with Mariota playing like this. Maybe Ryan Tannehill ends up being good for their offense, and he can help Derrick Henry stop seeing so many stacked boxes. And even with the way that Mariota's been playing, Henry's been putting up fantasy numbers. I don't like the way that Jacksonville's offensive line has been playing, or at least run blocking. I think it's hurting Fournette a lot. Fournette seems a little tentative. And he's going to have better games, so I agree with the buy low sentiment. But I think Derrick Henry from this point forward will be better.
Yeah,
I was actually very upset.
Sell high candidate.
Okay, I was very upset that he had that 69-yard run because I would have said he's a great buy low candidate because I just didn't really care about the stats. The fact that he's getting so many touches and he's on pace for 75 catches right now, and he's the only guy they use. I mean, that's just a great situation for Fournette.
Yeah, I also think I'm sorry. I also think their offensive line is going to get better too. Last night was Cam Robinson's first game. I don't know if he played the full game going through it because they said at the beginning of the broadcast that he was going to potentially rotate out after the second series. So once he starts to get his feet wet, you're still getting Jawan Taylor as a rookie working in. So I think there's a lot to like about Fournette's setup moving forward.
So yeah, the last thing. So Derrick Henry, I'm a naysayer on Henry, but if I did own Henry, I'd be encouraged. This was the game script that I feared so much, and they really didn't get away from him. They're just not using Dion Lewis. Like, I think they know, even when they're trailing, they're getting back in the game by running the football. They have a bad quarterback. I'm sorry to say it. So I thought that was interesting that this was down 14-0 at halftime, down 17-0 going into the third quarter, and he basically was still getting much of the work until the final drive of the game. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, I don't think Henry's a bad fantasy option. I would prefer Fournette, and I think this is, this is the scenario you have to deal with. That if he doesn't score, it's ugly, and there are going to be a few games like that.
And we've seen that from Fournette already. To be clear,
we have.
They're both good. I really don't want to come out of this feeling like the guy who says that Leonard Fournette's bad, because he's obviously going to have good games. But I just think Henry's going to be better. I think Gardner Minshew and the way that he's been playing, I think that could potentially hurt Fournette too.
I think
in this game he had 15 carries.
Tennessee was daring him to throw.
Yeah.
So the more that he proves that he
did out-snap Leonard Fournette. Sorry for all the interruptions here, but he just didn't really get. Dion Lewis out-snapped Derrick Henry. Sorry, but he didn't really get a lot of work. All right. Any other thoughts here? We good? Moving on.
This game hurt my eyes.
Yeah. How about this? Kyler Murray has thrown more pass attempts in 2 games than Marcus Mariota has in 3 games. And you missed the good game. The good game last night was Houston-Tulane. 53-yard touchdown pass in the final seconds after a fake kneel down. They looked like they were going to kneel to run out the clock, and they faked it. They ran a trick play. You can check out the highlights. I'm guessing on CBS. I'm sure we have a write-up on it on CBSSports.com. Why not? All right, we have a FanDuel League, ladies and gentlemen. A new contest each week just for our listeners. Only 595 entries. There are already like 20. I tweeted out a link this morning, so by the time you hear this, be a lot more people in there. So do not wait. If you want to join our FanDuel League, compete against us, Dave and Jamie, you got to go join it right now. FanDuel.com/league/FFT. That's how to get in our league. It's $5 entry. First place gets $250. Only 595 entries per week, but we'll do it every week. So go to FanDuel.com/league/FFT. Now, if you're not lucky enough to join that contest, don't worry. Plenty of opportunity to win some money on FanDuel. So the URL for the league is FanDuel.com/league/FFT. If you're just signing up for FanDuel, Just take the word league out of there and go to FanDuel.com/FFT. Deposit $20 and get $20 insight credit, $5 per week for 4 weeks. It's a great offer. FanDuel.com/FFT. Play for however much money you'd like. Play for $1, play for a lot more, play in a 50-50, which is kind of, an easier game to win, or play in a tournament for high stakes. I'm going in a tournament this week with Matthew Stafford. Got a great stat about what the Eagles are allowing to quarterbacks going back to last year. So just find the matchup you like, stack a team that could be a sneaky play, and win some money. Go to FanDuel.com/FFT, make a $20 deposit, get $5 in site credit for 4 straight weeks. So that's a $20 deposit and $20 in credit. FanDuel.com/FFT or the FanDuel app. Here are some stats for the NFC home games, and here's that stat that favors Matthew Stafford. You go back to last year. Now, 9 of the last 11 quarterbacks to face the Eagles have thrown for 297 or more yards. 9 of the last 11. The only 2 that did not were Mark Sanchez and Josh Johnson. So, wow. And Dave, I know we talked about it a little bit yesterday in our 60 seconds ranking debates, but you are higher on Stafford than the rest of the crew.
It's true. I just got done watching their offense on all 22 on NFL Game Pass, and Stafford he's taking all kinds of shots downfield. Some of them are hitting, some of them are missing, some of them are getting picked off, but I think that's where they're going to move forward. I think Stafford's going to be the identity of this offense more than we gave him credit for during the preseason, and that should be a good thing. I think he has great numbers, and I think he's a good FanDuel play too.
He's in my lineup. Juju Smith-Schuster, Jamie. This is an amazing stat. He's going up against the 49ers. 21 out of 24 wide receivers who had 6 or more targets against the Niners last year had 70 yards or a touchdown. That's an unbelievable rate. And so far this year, 3 out of 3 wide receivers who had 6 or more targets against the Niners had 70 yards or a touchdown. So maybe it's carrying over, but with Mason Rudolph, do you like Juju this week?
Yeah, you're still starting him. I mean, it's a downgrade to what his overall fantasy value is, but, I don't see anybody benching Juju Smith-Schuster, or at least they shouldn't. I got some questions last night about Chris Godwin versus Juju. I like Godwin better. Calvin Ridley versus Juju. In non-PPR, I would take Ridley. There are some scenarios, I guess, that you have some better receivers on your team, but for the most part, in a vacuum, you're starting Juju, and hopefully he has the breakout game we've been waiting for. It's been a little bit of a struggle through the first 2 games against New England and then losing Big Ben last week against Seattle. So there's a lot to like about him moving forward. He's a great buy low candidate if you can still get him. For the people who are maybe paranoid that they don't get the Juju that you drafted because of Big Ben not being there, try and prey on that if you can and see if you can get him cheap.
Tyrell Williams. Anybody interested in Tyrell Williams? The Vikings have allowed 100 yards or a touchdown to 4 wide receivers in 2 games. That's Julio, Calvin Ridley, Devontae Adams, and Geronimo Allison.
Not this week.
Yeah.
I think it's just, this is a injured Tyrell Williams going against a little bit of a, shell-shocked Vikings team, but, a Vikings defense that, kind of got pushed around a little bit last week, comparatively to where they, should have been against the Packers offense that was a little, underwhelming in week 1. So I think this is a game where they can sort of impose their will on the Raiders. You have Josh Jacobs and Tyrell Williams, the 2 best offensive players for them, coming in at less than 100%.
Trent Brown's hurt too on their offensive line. That's not going to help.
They are getting Richie Incognito back, though, so that will help.
Peyton Barber, last stat here, and then we'll get into the games, obviously, in a bit. The Giants, they've allowed 3 rushing touchdowns in 2 games. They allowed the 5th most rushing touchdowns to running backs last year. Just a bad defense. Bad defenses give up yards. Those end up being little touchdown runs.
Yeah, I think Peyton's a good flex, Adam. I don't know if I'm ready to trust him all the way as a number 2 running back. I think I'd have to be hurting at running back to do something like that. The matchup's good. I hope the Bucs continue to give him the ball. I just hope that they give one of these guys the Brock consistently, so that way we know. And they don't do this whole hot hand thing, or, watch this week be Dario Gumbawale week, and that's going to make it more frustrating for fantasy managers. So a little cautious on Barber, but, yeah, the matchup is great.
Okay, so real quick, Barber or Gore? Who's a better plotter?
I'd go Gore if Singletary is indeed out.
Okay. So speaking of which, news and notes. Marlon Mack missed practice with a calf injury. 3 games without Mack last year. Now, they were early in the year. They were weeks 1, 2, and 5, I believe, maybe 1, 2, and 4. Jordan Wilkins got much of the work. He had 14 carries, 10 carries, and 8 carries. Hines had 5 carries, 4 carries, and 4 carries. So, Wilkins, he was not so good, except 10 for 61 at Washington. But, yeah, what do you think about the Colts running backs against the Falcons this week if Mac does not play?
I think that Wilkins would be a flex. I could see him getting, not the same workload that Mac has been getting, but he leads the NFL in carries for a reason. This is what their offensive identity is going to be, is to, lean on their running backs, lean on their offensive line. I mean, I've been saying that since they lost Andrew Luck, that's the strength of this team. So, I could see Wilkins 15 carries. They're going to try and slow the game down. That's the way they're going to play this year. You saw it in the game against the Chargers in Week 1. They were trailing, they were chasing points, and it was still run from behind with Mac getting 25 carries. He's not going to be as explosive as Mac, although he had the big run last week. They like Jordan Wilkins, so I think there'll be a situation where you can trust him if he's the starter.
So would you rather have Frank Gore or Jordan Wilkins if Mac is out?
Gore.
And Singletary's out.
I think Gore just simply because of the matchup.
Okay.
But I could see them having very similar stat lines.
James Conner practiced in full. Josh Jacobs was limited in practice, and he's lost 10 pounds due to illness. Where do you guys have Josh Jacobs ranked?
I've got him 24th in non-PPR.
Yeah, not far from there, like 22, 23.
Yep.
Yeah, and he's only got 1 catch in 2 games. LaShawn McCoy seems more likely to play than Damian Williams. Is that fair to say at this point?
Sure. Well, he's practiced. He had a practice on Thursday. The hunch is that he'll practice on Friday. We'll see what Damian Williams does on Friday.
We previewed this game yesterday, so since we won't get to it today, give me your thoughts right now on the Chiefs running backs.
If McCoy plays and Damian Williams doesn't, he's a starter. If both are out, Darwin Thompson's a potential flex. Darrell Williams a long shot in deeper leagues. And if McCoy plays, then Thompson is someone you can use as a potential flex in PPR.
Let's say McCoy plays and Damian Williams does not. Would you start McCoy or Josh Jacobs?
McCoy.
And ahead of Jordan Wilkins?
Yeah.
Yes, and ahead of Gore.
Okay. Devin Singletary missed practice. Sterling Shepard will almost
and I'd start McCoy over Mixon.
Oh, all right. Josh Rosen starting for Miami. Any impact here?
If you're in a 32-team league, then play Taysom Hill over him.
According to Mike Garofalo of NFL Network, it would be, quote, a really good outcome if Deshaun Jackson and Alshon Jeffrey are back by week 5. Nelson Aguilar is the free space on FanDuel. He has $4,800.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, DraftKings, he's $3,600.
Yep.
So.
Put him in there.
Yep.
Cortland Sutton missed practice with sore ribs. Cleveland cornerbacks Denzel Ward and Greedy Williams both have hamstring issues, so that could benefit Jared Goff. Jimmy Graham missed practice. He might not play against Denver. Cam Newton obviously seems unlikely to play, as we know. And David Njoku has a broken wrist. Don't know. I don't think I am forgetting any injuries, but I will go through the injury report and see if I'm missing anything.
You got to keep an eye on. You got to keep an eye on Antonio Brown again.
Yeah, right. But as of now, you're ranking him and expecting him to play, right?
Yeah, but I mean, this is just becoming a nightmare.
I'm glad you brought it up. Right now, if you have Antonio Brown, you were trying to trade him. What would you be looking for?
Whew.
It's funny because I
because you don't have him on any of your teams?
No, it's just I'm just trying to think like on the other side of it. Like somebody comes offering me Antonio Brown, I don't want him. So like I think the thing you'd expect in return is hopefully a borderline starter, because I don't know how anybody can conceivably trade for him when there's a chance he may not be playing anytime soon.
It's what's keeping his value way down. He would be, if there wasn't any cloud hanging over his head, he'd be a top 5 fantasy receiver.
No.
Yeah, he would.
No.
Yes, he would.
That's a huge mistake.
I know you
No,
guys
it's not.
disagree there.
Huge mistake.
If he's playing for the Patriots the rest of the season, he's a top 5 fantasy receiver the rest of the way.
No way.
Yes way.
Okay. I mean, those are the leagues you play in. That's good. Somebody wants to value him that way. God bless him.
I didn't say that's if there was no black cloud over his head. Obviously, the fact that he could be off the field at any time crushes his value. So, no, he's not a top 5 fantasy receiver.
Even if there was nothing, he wouldn't be a top 5.
Yeah, he would, dude.
Okay.
He's
All right.
He's the best
we don't
ever.
have We don't have Heath.
A year ago, we were saying that about Antonio Brown.
I know. We weren't.
What do you mean? What's the argument now?
A year ago, were we talking about Antonio Brown as the best ever? And we talked about him as being the most talented receiver in football.
He was certainly good. Yes.
Of course. He was the number one in drafts. Yeah. I mean, he was the man. He was the man now, dog. Okay, so would you give up DJ Moore for Antonio Brown?
No.
You'd rather have Moore?
Yeah. No, I'd rather have Brown.
Would you give up LaShawn McCoy for Antonio Brown?
I'd rather have Brown.
That's a trade you should make.
Okay.
A 31-year-old running back for a guy that's maybe not playing anytime soon.
I'll take my chances with AB.
Would you give up Daniel Jones for Antonio? No, of course you'd keep Daniel Jones. All right. Beat the waiver wire. Next week, the Jets and the Niners are on bye. So one guy that's on bye that I'm going to say maybe beat the waiver wire is Deebo Samuel. He just might be good and worth hanging on to even through a bye week, and he's 45% owned. Marquez Valdez-Scantling has been dropped in a lot of leagues. He's now 68% owned, and he gets Philadelphia next Thursday. I don't think you want to start MVS this week against Denver, but I still think I just don't think he should be 68% owned. They've just had a brutal schedule, first 2 games and now 3 games, very tough matchups. So if people are giving up on MVS, I wouldn't be. And Golden Tate is 49% owned. Any other guys you want to stash? I'll get into some of the just week 4 matchups, but just general overall long-term stashes.
I would start with Ito Smith because Devontae Freeman, first 2 weeks of the season, he hasn't looked good. Smith's looked better. Freeman should go off against Indianapolis, especially if Darius Leonard doesn't play. But if he doesn't, or if Ito Smith does, then that's somebody who could really make an impact on your fantasy squad. So I'm stashing him in a bunch of leagues. He's out there in about 60% of CBS Sports leagues. Just for week 3, Devin Smith against Miami, replacing Michael Gallup. Amazing matchup. Maybe he catches a couple of deep passes. Ty Johnson in Detroit. Looks like he's the number 2 guy behind Kerryon Johnson. That's not a bad thing. He's available in 84% of CBS Sports leagues. And then just deeper leagues, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. I believe he's inside of 10% owned, so he's out there in a bunch of leagues. Next 2 weeks, looks like he's going to play a lot for the Eagles. It's not a bad thing.
You better say his name right. It's J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, Dave.
I know.
He's Spanish.
I think both of them are acceptable.
That's true. Both players are very good, Arcega and Arcega.
Right.
By the way, the Dolphins, this is interesting. Only one wide receiver in 2 games. They faced Baltimore barely through and the Patriots. Only one wide receiver has more than 5 targets. Only one wide receiver has more than 56 yards against the Dolphins. They have allowed 5 receiving touchdowns, though, to wide receivers. But it's interesting. You just don't have to throw that much on them. So that's a game we'll preview. Jamie, you want me to go through the kind of the matchups for next week, or do you have any guys you want to talk about?
James Washington, just to see if there is a connection between Mason Rudolph and him, I think is still worth it. If you have an open roster spot, I'll continue to say the same thing, Chris Herndon, because it sounds like Sam Darnold will be back in week 5, and then Herndon will be back in week 6. So if you can carry 2 tight ends, he could be interesting.
Herndon's still available 85% of leagues.
Will Dissly, if last week is a sign of things to come for a team that is still searching for additional targets. He had 2 touchdowns and could, be one of those type of guys that not necessarily have to start week in, week out, but could be a streamer or a bye week replacement. So those would be a couple I'd look at.
All right, for next week, if you need a quarterback, if you're relying on Jimmy Garoppolo and Luke Falk, Jacoby Brissett against Oakland, Matthew Stafford against Kansas City. That could be fun. Case Keenum at the Giants, deep leagues. Kyle Allen at Houston.
That's if Keenum's still starting.
Why wouldn't he be? Oh, Haskins, yeah.
At some point, they're going to make the switch.
Keenum at least is playing well, but yeah, you're right. Jordan Reed at the Giants could be nice if Jordan Reed's back. Oh, by the way, is Jordan Reed back this week?
No. I don't know if he's going to be back anytime soon.
Chargers DSD. Stash them. Even if you don't want to play them this week, they are at Miami next week. They're about 75% owned. That might be the first thing I get on the waiver wire, the Chargers DSD.
I'm actually playing them this week, and I will take my lumps with them this week just so I can use them in week 4.
Denver DST against Jacksonville, and Gardner Minshew is amazing, so I don't know. Justin Jackson maybe at Miami. It's not easy to find running backs, but Jackson has a chance to, get some garbage time work and just regular work and score against Miami. And then, look, you got a roster spot and somebody that's useless, just pick up a handcuff. This could be the week that the starter gets hurt. You never know. And then you have beaten the waiver wire.
Yeah, Rex Burkhead, too. he's getting some carries, and they've been blowing out teams.
Yep, could be this week. Okay. Have you ordered a pizza online from Little Caesars yet? If not, you're missing out on Pizza Portal Pickup. What is Pizza Portal Pickup? It's like getting pizza right out of the oven yourself. You walk in, you enter a code on the portal, a door opens, and you're off with your favorite pizza. And whatever pizza you order, it'll have crazy, crazy amount of toppings. It's fun. Give it a try, but it's only available at Little Caesars Pizza. Always wanted to say pizza. Man, Little Caesars was so good. We had that at the telethon. They sponsored the telethon. Stuff is great. Get that Pizza Portal. All right, let's get to the games. Here we go. Detroit at Philadelphia. So, Kerryon Johnson. Let's start with Kerryon Johnson. The Eagles are playing without defensive tackles Malik Jackson and now his backup Timmy Jernigan. Fletcher Cox apparently has not been his usual self. He's recovering from offseason foot surgery. And yet, their run defense has still been pretty good. They also are not playing with linebacker Kamu Grugier-Hill, who they like. He hopes to return next Thursday. But Kerryon Johnson, it's been a struggle. He had the touchdown catch last week. How comfortable are you starting him?
More so in PPR than non-PPR. I think this is kind of a discovery game. If you drafted him in the late second, early third round, it's hard to bench him unless you have just great options on your team. So I can understand if you want to get away from him. But hopefully the move to get rid of C.J. Anderson is to give him a couple more touches, not necessarily to give him 90% of the workload, because they're going to use Ty Johnson and they're going to give him some opportunities, and maybe still J.D. McKissick as well. But I think you have an opportunity here to get him back to, I think, what we saw in week 1 when he had the 18 total touches. If he's in that range, I think he'll be successful against Philadelphia, because like you said, they're so beat up defensively, and they really haven't faced a great running team yet. Washington in week 1 when Darius Geis was beat up, and then Atlanta last week with how Devontae Freeman's been looking. I think this could be, I don't want to say it's the best rushing offense that they'll face, because Detroit obviously hasn't shown that yet, but it could be. And it could be an opportunity for Kerryon Johnson to get going. Remember, it took him a little while last year to get going too, and I think this could be the start of it.
Yeah, it's just sickening how they don't even use him on 60% of the snaps. He's been at 57% and 55% to begin the year. I'd like to think that changes now with C.J. Anderson gone, but Ty Johnson played well last week, and they used J.D. McKissick as their 2-minute drill back. That's kind of gross. I thought early on, I thought Kerryon left some numbers on the field last week, to be honest with you, and he should have had a much bigger game. His first 2 carries, they should have been much longer runs. Taylor Decker has a chance to play this week. That'll help the offensive line. A little bit more on that when we get to Hawkinson. You're going to start Kerryon Johnson. The workload should be there, and hopefully he does more through the air. I think Philadelphia, if I remember correctly, they're giving up about 10 yards per catch to running backs. 9.5.
They have struggled with pass catching back so far this season.
Yep.
Yeah, on the ground, though, running backs are averaging just 2.93 yards per carry, but Chris Thompson had 7 for 68 receiving. Freeman had 3 for 42 receiving. Geis himself had 3 for 20. All right, so LaShawn McCoy, if Damian Williams is out, or Kerryon Johnson?
I'll take Kerryon.
Yeah, Kerryon.
Nelson Aguilar or Kerryon Johnson?
Kerryon.
I think it could be close in PPR, full PPR. I will check my rankings. I think I have Kerryon higher, but I'm going to double check.
I wish you guys had Aguilar ranked similarly, but I think, Dave, you have him much lower than Jamie.
Yeah, I have Kerryon 5 spots ahead of him in full PPR.
Yeah, I like Aguilar a lot.
Yeah, Aguilar's going to be kind of my this guy or this guy like flex comparison. I think he's great waiver wire pickup. Somebody I'm excited about.
If the targets are there for him, I think I said this on the video show yesterday that he's had 6 games in his career with double digits in targets. In 5 of them, he scored at least 12 or more PPR points. And he had 11 last week.
Double digits, yeah. All right, that's a lot. So, because I have a stat on him as well, but fewer targets. But same concept.
When the targets are up, he plays well. I mean, that's kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah, right. Real head scratcher there, right? So Stafford, Dave made the case for him. Jamie, you have Stafford, what, like 15th or something?
16th. Yeah, I think he's a fine starter. I just don't know where the ceiling is for him because he doesn't always reach his ceiling. And it took him, his best game so far this season came 5 quarters against the worst defense, maybe aside from Miami in the NFL. So I think what we saw from him last week is kind of what the norm is going to be, where he'll have a 300 2-2 or a 250 280 2-2. That's a good game. It's not a great game. So he'll be in that 20-point range. I think if he's the guy you picked up to play off waivers, you're certainly fine with him. The guy I go back and forth with him is Jacoby Brissett, because I think they're going to kind of be in the same range. Brissett's been averaging 20 points per game in his 2 starts. I think that's kind of where Stafford will be. He makes mistakes. He has turnovers. They still, like Dave said, this should be their identity. He's right, but they have an identity crisis for years. They don't know what they want to be, a run team or a pass team. And I think it could also depend on if Kerryon Johnson gets off to a good start, their run game goes off to a good start, they kind of will lean that way. It's a good way to slow down the Eagles and their offense. So I don't love Matthew Stafford to the same level that Dave does. I understand why he does. And for those of you that want to start him, God bless you. I'd start Josh Allen over him. I would start Jameis Winston over him. I would start Jacoby Brissett over him as of now.
I'm with you on Allen. The other 2 I just can't get behind.
Yeah, I think there's higher ceilings for those guys.
Okay, Ty Johnson, by the way, just real quick. Do you think he's a beat the waiver wire PPR guy?
No.
Okay, like maybe he,
Oh, no. Like, as far as like having him as a
injury.
starter next
He needs
week.
an injury.
No, he's a stash guy. Does that make sense?
All right.
That should
Yeah,
make
yeah.
sense.
So he's
There's
not
a difference
like
between
Theo
the 2.
Riddick. Okay.
What do you mean he's
All right,
not
then.
like it's
He's
a
not
good
gonna
thing that
be
he's
their-
not like Theo
He's
Riddick.
not going to be their pass catching guy. He's not going to be a PPR like 70.
No,
catch.
I think he's somebody that needs an injury to be successful for your fantasy team.
Right. So he's not going to be a starter in week 4 unless something happens to carry on.
All right, then. So that's Ty Johnson. Kenny Galladay is a must-start guy.
Yep.
Who's the second best wide receiver in this game? Is it Aguilar?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Any interest in Marvin Jones or Danny Amendola?
It's a no on Amendola.
No for both.
Yeah. Like Marvin Jones is behind all the guys we picked up off waivers this week.
Carson Wentz. He is 10th for Jamie, 11th for Dave, and 7th for Heath. I'm sure you guys would like him better if he had his weapons.
Yes.
He's also not running. He's averaging 4 yards per game this year. He averaged 8.5 last year. He averaged 23 rushing yards per game 2 seasons ago when he was at his best. So it's early. It's just 2 games, but I'd like to see that go up. But Josh Allen or Carson Wentz?
Allen.
Allen.
Stafford too.
Bottom line,
No.
he's
Wentz.
not a bad starter, but he's not a great starter this week, Carson Wentz. Now, Miles Sanders, I'm sure, is the only Philadelphia running back you'd have interest in. Sanders or Kerryon Johnson.
That's not close.
You can't feel good about starting Sanders. He looks good, and he's playing a decent amount, but I don't think you can start him.
Okay. So Sanders or Frank Gore?
Gore.
Yeah.
I'd start Wilkins over Sanders too if he's a starter.
Okay, so here's my Nelson Aguilar stat. It's actually not that good. I thought it was better. In 2018, he had 7 or more targets 7 times. He had more than 60 receiving yards only 3 times. And within those 7 games, he had 3 games with double-digit targets. Could this really be right? He had 33, 88, and 22 yards in 3 games with double-digit targets. Nick Foles started 2 of those 3 games, not Wentz. But honestly, I just don't really care. If he's going to get a lot of work against the Lions, he's probably going to be good, right? Let's not overcomplicate it.
No, I think it's one of those scenarios of it's who you're starting him over. I would start him over Stephon Diggs, for example. Now, that's probably risky just given what the name value is, but the production already through 2 weeks shows you that Aguilar in a featured role is better than Diggs in his role. Right now, that could change this week against Oakland. I have no problem if somebody's going to say Stephon Diggs is better. I can't tell you that he's not just based on the only thing I tell you that he's not is just based on what we've seen from this Minnesota offense. But if you still want to start Stephon Diggs over Aguilar, by all means do so. I think it's an opportunity here for him when he's playing with Matt Collins and J-Jaw that if you're Carson Wentz, what you saw in that game against the Falcons with 16 targets going to Ertz and 11 targets going to Aguilar, that's what they do. It's like Andy Reid's offense. They just consolidate targets to the main guys in their team. Now, they're probably not going to be in a situation where they're chasing points or in an up-tempo type of game because I don't think Detroit's offense is going to operate like that. So I don't know if he's going to get to the 11 targets from Aguilar's perspective, but he should be the second highest targeted player in this offense, which should lead to quality production as long as Darius Slay is not chasing him over the field, which I don't think is going to be the case.
No, and maybe I'm just overvaluing Justin Coleman in the slot for Detroit, but I think last week injuries happened in the middle of the game. Maybe Carson Wentz, I don't know if it was panic, but just wanted to rely on those guys that he knew last week. and J-Jaw and Hollins, just they don't have that type of experience. After a week's worth of practice, I would expect them to get more targets and to get more work in the offense. And I think that's you attack Detroit away from Darius Slay. That's obviously going to work in favor of Aguilar, but I think Aguilar is going to be covered tight too. So I like him. I guess I just don't like him as much as you guys do. I think he's still a very good PPR, probably close to a number 2 wide receiver in PPR, but not non-PPR, and a great daily play.
Yeah, right. We can all agree on that. His price in daily, Nelson Aguilar's price is crazy. Zach Ertz, 16 targets, so he might also be, even though he's expensive, he might also be a great play in DFS. He might just have his huge breakout game of this season, hasn't scored yet. And Philadelphia's DST, 12th for Jamie, 10th for Heath, not ranked for Dave. Not sure that this is a game where you want to be targeting these DSTs. But what you do want to be targeting, if it's available on your waiver wire, is the SeatGeek app. I would definitely recommend stashing, beat the waiver wire, get the SeatGeek app, and when you need tickets, you need to be using SeatGeek. Millions of tickets in one place. Search for sports, live music, comedy, and more. SeatGeek has the tickets you're looking for all in one place, and this is a real personal endorsement. I do use SeatGeek all the time. Sports, concerts, comedy, went to theater, whatever it is. SeatGeek is just the place I go to get tickets. Over 50,000 5-star reviews in the App Store. How's that for customer satisfaction? It's a better process. SeatGeek pulls together millions of tickets from all over the web, so you don't have to. Rates the deals on a scale of 1 to 10. You can find the best bargains right there. You can sort by price. You can include all of the fees. I love that. You're getting the actual price. It's not like, oh, you click that, you think that's the price, and bam, more fees. No. SeatGeek breaks down the details. The green dots mean good deals. The red dots are overpriced. So get on SeatGeek right now and use the promo code FFT for $10 off your first purchase. That's our promo code. It's FFT. Download the SeatGeek app or go to SeatGeek.com and use that promo code FFT for $10 off your first purchase. Pittsburgh at San Francisco. All right, you know the stat of the game. It's about the wide receivers with 6 or more targets dating back to last year. Now 24 out of 27 wide receivers with 6 or more targets have had 70 yards or a touchdown against the 49ers.
So this is the week for Dante Moncrief then?
I do wonder if it's James Washington. I mean,
it might be Vance McDonald.
But I didn't do a tight end stat. That's just wide receivers.
I know, but this is still a guy who can get 6 or more targets against San Francisco.
Yeah, but, it sets up nicely for Juju. So if you're nervous about him, if he can't do it against San Francisco, that might be a problem. And then Connor, we talked about briefly yesterday. Look, he's been bad, but I looked at he's got 21 carries in 2 games. But in the first half, he has 15 carries in 2 games. So they just got to stay in the game. And
well, he also left.
Yeah, right. He left last week with the knee.
So he would have had more probably.
Right.
Yeah.
He left with the knee injury, but they got blown out in week 1. So he's to 1, stay healthy, and 2, stay in the game. Do you think this is a competitive game?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay. So, Dave, as I recall, you were lower on Connor, right?
Yeah. I have him as a number 2 running back this week. I think he's got a good chance. I think he could actually see an uptick in catches. We saw that from Rudolph last week where he leaned on both the running backs. I am a little concerned about Jalen Samuels taking some touches away from Connor. I'm glad he practiced yesterday. It looks like he's going to be on track to play. Let's see if the Steelers commit to him the way we thought that they would back in August.
It just makes
sense.
Now
that he's banged up. Right, because he's banged up, right?
No, it makes sense for them to commit to him because of the quarterback change.
See, I would go the other way and say that it makes sense to not commit to him and give Jalen Samuels some work because James Conner was banged up. That's one of the reasons why I don't have him as high as I normally rank him.
Yeah, and San Francisco's run defense hasn't been so bad, especially with Quan Alexander. Before he got ejected in week 1, the Tampa Bay running backs were averaging 4 yards per carry. And then in week 2, the Cincinnati running backs were awful. He's a little pricey for me in DFS, but I understand you drafted James Conner in the first round. You're not sitting him. So, Juju, yes. James Washington, he's 53% owned. Is he a stash or is he a start?
He's not a start, but he's a stash. I mean, it's total connecting the dots. You have a backup quarterback coming in who's worked with a guy not just on the scout team, not just in the preseason, but also they have a college rapport together, and the guy in front of him has been absolutely dismal.
Sure. Vance McDonald. Yeah, no, Moncrief's time is over. Vance McDonald, top 12, 8th for Dave. So McDonald or Witten?
McDonald.
It should be McDonald.
By the way, thank you for those garbage time points last night. Delaney Walker, much appreciated.
Yeah, good in PPR, not so good in non-PPR.
He didn't he have 70 yards or something?
7 for 64.
64? Not so good. TJ Hawkinson or Vance McDonald?
Vance.
McDonald.
Hawkinson did a lot of blocking. Hawkinson did a lot of blocking last week, and I think that obviously takes away targets. And I think Stafford's just looking downfield a little bit more. And, not playing against Arizona, it's going to impact how you do. And I think Hawkinson's going to be needed to help protect Stafford. So I feel like Hawkinson is still good enough to start, but I'd rather go with McDonald.
Okay, I did forget about Hawkinson when we did Detroit, Philadelphia. My apologies. He's right around 10th or 11th for all three guys. So you can start him, but he's not like a top 5 guy or anything like that. And that's it for Pittsburgh. We go over to San Francisco. All right, Jimmy Garoppolo or Jacoby Brissett? Who's a better streamer this week?
Garoppolo.
I think I have Garoppolo higher, but I will.
Are there any typical starters at quarterback that you'd start Garoppolo over?
Baker. Jinx.
Hey, there we go. Okay, Garoppolo's
Dalton.
14th in the rankings.
In case you were thinking about Andy Dalton, I would sit him for Garoppolo too.
Talk about those running backs. Breida, Mostert, Wilson. What do we expect this week against the Steelers?
Breida and Mostert to split most of the work, and your dart throat at Jeff Wilson.
So
split Mostert the work.
Yeah, right.
Most of the work, yes.
I crunched numbers on how the 49ers were using their running backs for the first 2 weeks of the season. Raheem Mostert has more red zone snaps, targets, and catches than anybody else on the 49ers. And he had more carries than Breida last week. Breida has 1 red zone snap through 2 games. Tevin Coleman in a half of football had more than he did. So I think they like Breida between the 20s, and I think when they get close to the red zone, they don't want him to get banged up, or at least for the first 2 weeks of the season, that's what they wanted to do. I think Mostert might be the better bet in fantasy, and he catches more passes. So he's my favorite running back in San Francisco, but he's not – he's barely on the RB2 radar. He's Guys, a good flex in PPR.
I keep bringing this up, and I'm the only one who feels this way, I think. I just think the score dictated the snaps.
I'm with you. I think Breida is still the better of the two. I could see a scenario where Mostert is better because this is what this offense is going to be. It's what this offense is always going to be. When they have the opportunity to use 2 guys, they're going to use 2 guys. So the second guy can be better than the first guy, and if you want to believe that Mostert is the first guy, Breida could still be better than him. If you want to believe that Breida is the first guy, Mostert could be better than him. It's just a matter of, did they put Mostert into Tevin Coleman's role and say, we're not changing what we're going to do with Matt Breida, no matter who is in there, unless they're all gone like what we saw last year. So this was always going to be what Breida does, is the second guy, maybe between the 20s, and Coleman was always going to be the red zone guy. Coleman was always going to be the pass-catching guy, and they're not changing that. So for this week, Mostert could be better. I would still trust Matt Breida more because I think he's still the more talented of the two.
And would you start either of them over Miles Sanders?
Both.
Okay.
Both over the Chiefs guys if both play. Both over the Colts guys if Marlon Mack is not there.
Both over Latavius Murray.
Yeah, easy.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, they're both.
Jeff Wilson, by the way, sorry, there was a report that Jeff Wilson could get the red zone work, and not just a report, but I think.
Yeah, we heard it from Kyle Shanahan. That's a pretty good source.
Right.
So he's second on the team in red zone touches or red zone.
I think you're hoping for him to find the end zone. That's never a good situation to sort of gamble on your fantasy roster unless you're in a touchdown only league. But I think it could be messy. I think you want to view these guys most likely as all of them as flex options, none of them as must-start guys, but very good flex options in terms of the top 2, in terms of Breida and Mostert.
All right, let's wrap here. Are you confident enough to start a San Francisco wide receiver, and if so, who would it be?
No, and it would be Debo.
Get Debo on your bench.
But also, same thing with Marquise Goodwin. He's going to be one of those guys like how you viewed Deshaun Jackson before Deshaun Jackson had 9 catches in week 1. He's going to be that type of player where not as good, but the big play. Every other week he'll score. Sometimes he'll score twice. Most weeks he'll have 2 catches for 30 yards.
San Francisco DST is top 10. You can start the Niners DST. George Kittle, start him. All right, guys, we have 4 minutes left in our video show, and we're doing this game. We are doing New Orleans-Seattle. You have just 4 minutes to do it. Stat of the game, the Seahawks allow the third most fantasy points to tight ends through 2 games, facing Cincinnati and Pittsburgh. Jared Cook had 7 targets, second most on the team. In week 2, he had 5 targets after Drew Brees' injury. He still got targets compared to everyone else other than Michael Thomas. Jared Cook or some of the guys we've talked about so far, like Vance McDonald, T.J. Hawkinson. Who would you go with?
I'll take the other guys ahead of Cook. Just not ready to trust him. I've got a lot of questions about how the Saints are going to use their quarterbacks and what their offense will look like. On the road, second week in a row, and they practice all week in Seattle. I'm kind of nervous about the Saints this week.
I don't blame you. You can't start one of their quarterbacks. We don't know what the splits are going to be. Alvin Kamara, you're going to start. Latavius Murray, you're going to sit, right?
Correct.
Okay. Seattle is allowing 3.75 yards per carry to opposing running backs, and that's only because Benny Snell had 1 carry for 21 yards. Otherwise, they've dominated Connor and Mixon and Gio, basically. I know Connor scored. Okay, Michael Thomas, starting him, right?
You have to.
Yep.
Jared Cook we're avoiding. So then Seahawks are more interesting. Russell Wilson, start or sit?
Start him. You know, I think you've seen enough of this Saints defense that they're just not very good.
They're not as good as we thought they would be. He's top 10 for me.
Okay, so how does he compare to Wentz and Allen, who I know are right around top 10? Well?
Better than Wentz behind Allen.
Yep. I got him ahead of Goff, Jameis, and then all the guys that you might consider streamers, save for Stafford. I like Stafford 1 notch better.
Chris Carson, top 10 this week?
Yes.
I believe he is, right?
I'm believing in Carson until I see them really go full on to Rashad Penny.
2 fumbles in 2 games.
I know. I got to see it first.
Just to give you something interesting for Sunday. So we have every week, his name is Tom Spencer. He is, I don't know his exact CBS
editorial consultant?
Yeah, he's basically in the booth with Jim Nantz and Tony Romo, and he comes on Fantasy Football Today every Sunday and gives us all the inside information about the game that the main CBS crew is doing, and it's absolutely awesome. It's my favorite segment on Sunday. It might be my favorite segment that we do all week because he's so good, and he will give us the insight on what the Saints are going to do at their quarterback position because he will have been in the coaches meetings. And
Jamie, can I cut you off just so we can get this game?
No,
into the
watch
video,
it.
people?
Watch it Sunday at 12 o'clock Eastern on CBS Sports HQ.
All right, I do apologize, but Tyler
10
Lockett,
o'clock, 10
DK
a.m. Eastern. Excuse me, 10 a.m. Eastern.
Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, and Will Dissly is where we have a hard out here for this game. How do you feel about the pass catchers for the Seahawks?
Lockett is a must start. Metcalf is a very good number 3 receiver or potential flex, and Dissly's a good streaming tight end.
Same.
Okay, Dissly or Hawkinson?
Hawkinson.
I'll take Hawk.
Dissly is better than Jimmy Graham. He's better than Kyle Rudolph. He's better than Vernon Davis this week.
He's
better than Jared Cook too. Yes.
There you go. DK Metcalf or Nelson Aguilar?
Aguilar.
I think I actually have Metcalf ranked higher. I'll see if I stick with that.
DK Metcalf or David Montgomery?
Montgomery and non-PPR. Probably Montgomery in both.
Last one, Metcalf or Josh Jacobs?
Metcalf and PPR.
Yep.
We like the Seahawks DST. They are 7th for Dave and Jamie. They are 5th for Heath. They were great against Cincinnati. They were against Pittsburgh, but backup quarterback situation here for the Saints. And we did it. We previewed the game in 4 minutes.
They had a backup quarterback last week, too.
That's true. They were really that good.
Should we do the rest of the games in 4 minutes?
I think we can. I think we just proved to ourselves that we can do a game in 4 minutes. That's terrific. All right, we'll be back with the audio portion. Thanks to our video crew. Go watch the video, youtube.com/fantasyfootball today. For the video viewers, we'll talk to you on Sunday night. For the audio listeners, we'll talk to you in like 3 seconds.